Now, in response to last night's attack on the nuclear power station in Ukraine, the U.S. Embassy in Kiev tweeted Friday that Russia committed war crimes. And Ukrainian President Vladimir Zelensky warned of the danger that Russia's invasion poses not only to Ukraine, but to all of Europe.
The Russian military must be stopped immediately. Shout to your politicians. Ukraine has 15 nuclear units. If there is an explosion, it is end of everything, the end of Europe.
How concerned should we be? Joining us now to talk about it and more is Congressman Warren Davidson, who's a U.S. Army veteran and a member of the Republican Study Committee and the House Freedom Caucus. He represents Ohio's 8th Congressional District. Congressman, welcome back to the program.
Great to talk with you again. Thanks for having me today.
Well, thank you for taking some time. The attack by the Russians of the Ukrainian power plant getting a lot of the attention today. Do you believe, as some clearly do, that Russia has committed a war crime?
Look, not just with this attack, but they're overtly attacking civilian population centers, and they're using, or at least they're alleged to be using, weapons that do violate Geneva Conventions and Vladimir Putin, but some of his military leaders are vulnerable to being charged as war criminals.
Now, a little bit of your answer cut out there, but yeah, it sounds like that you agree, and that's the direction that a lot of the international community seems to be heading with this. Can you tell us what would the significance be if the international community determined that Russia was committing war crime? Would that make it more likely that the rest of the world would get involved officially?
I don't know if it really fundamentally makes the world more or less likely to get involved in actual combat. I think the challenge is going to be, let's just say you say Vladimir Putin is a war criminal. The degree of difficulty, rendering Vladimir Putin to The Hague is quite a lot, pretty substantial compared to Slobodan Milosevic, for example. So, never before has a leader of a great power, been charged as a war criminal, at least since, World War II.
Now, President Biden has asked for Congress to allocate $10 billion in immediate aid for Ukraine and Eastern European partners. Do you think that's the right move?
I don't know about the right number, and I don't know about the bill. I haven't seen the text on it. I am more worried about the language, because, we had a resolution, which is not an authorization. It's a resolution to show support for the people of Ukraine. And it could have just been that simple. But they put language in it that's problematic, that in this funding, we have to be clear that this is not an authorization to go to war in Ukraine. And we don't want the executive branch to look for any possible hooks to decide of their own accord to be able to commit our country to war. Congress has that power, and Congress ought not give it away unless it's very overt and it is clearly the will of the people of the United States. And, while everyone I know is praying for the people of Ukraine and sees Vladimir Putin as the clear aggressor in an unjust war, and sees Ukraine and Zelensky as rightfully engaged in self-defense, and wish them success in it. This is not America's war to fight, and I don't think Congress should be authorizing combat right now.
I think a lot of America agrees with you on that point, as difficult as it is to watch this, but we are trying to figure out how to respond. The Biden administration unveiled additional sanctions yesterday, including visa restrictions on Russian elites and their families. Tell us, what's the strategy behind rolling out these sanctions gradually rather than doing everything that you can immediately?
Yeah, so look, I will give kudos to the Biden administration for, A, they were accurate about the intelligence, and B, they made it public. So they did everything they could with the intelligence. The trouble is that they didn't react to it well themselves. So they waited until until Russia had already invaded Ukraine to go for enforcement mechanisms, to even say we're cutting off, Nord Stream 2 as a pipeline after they've already invaded. And it's like, do you really feel like this is acceptable behavior for Russia to mass on the border and to do these menacing threats against their neighbors? And if you don't, then why aren't we starting to take action? Republicans tried to take action in December and were blocked by Democrats. And there were calls to put sanctions on Russia all along since then, to kick in cancellations on Nord Stream, and they were, not accepted. There were lots of calls to get Germany to do something, and unfortunately, Germany waited until, Vladimir Putin had already invaded Ukraine to A, diminish their demand for Russian energy, and B, go public with their commitment to finally fully fund their NATO treaty obligations for defense spending. So, I think there are a lot of other things down into the weeds that we could have communicated with Zelensky and with Putin in terms of NATO countries, NATO members, that really truly could have prevented this war. In a way, that's great lessons for history. Right now, what do? I think we have to apply strong leverage like the SWIFT sanctions. That was too slow in coming in. And we target the oligarchs, because Vladimir Putin isn't laying awake worrying about the next election. To the extent he's accountable to the oligarchs.
Congressman Warren Davidson, we've got about 30 seconds, but very quickly, indications that we might be coming to another agreement with Iran around nuclear arms. What's your reaction to that?
Just dismay. This administration, if they could find one worse partner than Russia to buy energy from, it's Iran. So what a horrible idea. Bad policy by Biden.
Congressman Warren Davidson, thank you so much for your vigilance, and thank you for spending some time with us today. Greatly appreciate it.
You as well. Thank you. God bless America.